The observation deck of the Galactic Accord Research Station hung like a glass eye over the jungle moon of Varath 7. Inside, a dozen xenobiologists from across the galaxy stood in tense silence, watching the monitors with a mixture of confusion and concern. "This makes no evolutionary sense," chittered Kulax, their crystalline carapace refracting the monitor's glow into rainbow patterns. The crystid researcher had studied predator-prey dynamics for 3 centuries. The cubs should fear all large bipeds equally. On the screen, 6 Varath cubs, each no larger than a Terran house cat but infinitely more precious, huddled together in the corner of the enclosure. Their silvery fur stood on end, their 6 eyes wide with terror. The cubs had been orphaned when their pack matriarch died from a viral infection, and every attempt to approach them had ended in the same paralyzed fear response. Every attempt except one. Dr. Ellen Ward sat cross-legged on the enclosure floor, 20 meters from the cubs, not moving. She'd been sitting there for 47 minutes, just breathing, just existing. Her brown hair was tied back simply. Her clothes were standard-issue research grays. There was nothing remarkable about her appearance, and yet— "Look," whispered Tavrun, the molluscoid behavioral specialist, their tentacles curling in disbelief. "The small one is moving." Rikar, the smallest of the cubs and usually the most skittish, had separated from the group. His whiskers twitched, testing the air. One paw extended, then another. The other researchers had tried everything: food bribes, pheromone simulators, sonic calmers. But this tiny creature was choosing of its own will to approach the human. "Dr. Ward," Kulax spoke into the comm system, their voice careful and measured. "Please don't move. We need to understand what's happening here." Ellen's voice came back through the speaker, barely above a whisper. "I'm not planning to." There was something in her tone, not the clinical detachment of a scientist, but the gentle certainty of someone who understood that fear needed space, not solutions. Rikar took another step, then another. His ears, which had been flattened against his skull for days, began to rise. The other cubs watched, their shared distress clicking in their throats, but they didn't call him back. "Heart rate analysis," demanded Tavrun. The station's AI displayed the biometric data in holographic arrays. The cubs' cardiac rhythms were elevated but stabilizing. Rikar's neural patterns showed curiosity overriding fear. But it was Ellen's readings that made the researchers exchange glances. Her heart rate was remarkably low, her stress hormones almost non-existent. "How is she that calm?" asked Kulax. "Every species we've tested triggers the cubs' alarm response. The V-Corps sent their gentlest handler. The cubs nearly died from terror. The Christids tried—" "We're aware of the failures," Tavrun interrupted gently. Rikar was 5 meters away now, close enough that Ellen could see the subtle bioluminescence in his fur, the way it pulsed with each rapid heartbeat. She didn't reach out, didn't make promises in soothing tones. She simply existed, a constant in the chaos these cubs had endured. "This is a human thing," Kulax declared, their crystalline structure humming with intellectual frustration. "Some chemical we haven't identified. Some pheromone." "It's not chemical," Tavrun said softly. "The molluscoid species had survived for millennia by reading the subtle energies of living things. Look at her electromagnetic signature. It's gentle, rounded. Most sentient species emit angular competitive frequencies. Even when calm, there's an edge of predation. But humans—" On screen, Rikar reached Ellen. He pressed his small silver nose against her knee. The other cub's clicking stopped abruptly, Ellen's voice barely audible. "Hey, little one." 2 more cubs began to move. Then a third. Within minutes, all 6 surrounded her, pressing close, their terror evaporating like morning frost. Rikar climbed into her lap, his 6 eyes finally closing in the first sleep any of them had achieved since the quarantine began. "I don't understand," Kulax admitted. "Humans are apex predators on their world. They should trigger the strongest fear response of all." Ellen began to hum, not words, just a melody. Something old, passed down through human generations. A lullaby that contained no logic, no survival advantage, just the simple desire to comfort. Tavrun's tentacles swayed in rhythm with the song. "Perhaps that's precisely why," the molluscoid said. "Every species here evolved to survive. We climbed our way up through competition, through being the strongest, the smartest, the most adapted. But humans—" Tavrun gestured to the screen where Ellen sat surrounded by sleeping cubs, her hand now gently stroking Rikar's fur. They evolved to survive too, but somewhere along the way they also evolved to care. Deeply, irrationally for things that provide no survival benefit. Irrational care? Kulax's carapace flickered skeptically. She gains nothing from comforting these cubs, Tavrun explained. They're not her species. They provide no resources, yet her stress levels are dropping because they're calming. She's neurologically rewarded for their peace. The cubs sense this, sense that they're safe not despite her being a predator, but because her predation has been tempered by something we haven't fully developed. Kulax was silent for a long moment. Empathy, more than empathy, compassion, the ability to not just understand suffering but to be genuinely distressed by it, to prioritize another's comfort over one's own advantage. Tavarun's electromagnetic field pulsed thoughtfully. The cubs sense no threat because in this moment she genuinely wishes them no harm. Most species can mimic this. Humans seem to actually feel it. On the monitor, Ellen slowly stood, 6 cubs now clinging to her like burrs. She walked toward the enclosure door, each step measured and calm. Rikar perched on her shoulder, his previous terror transformed into trust so complete it seemed almost miraculous. Kulax, Ellen said quietly into her calm. I'm bringing them to the medical bay for examination. They'll let me now. As the door sealed behind her, the researchers stood in silence. They had documented something their instruments couldn't fully measure. The strange alchemy of human kindness. That peculiar evolution that made humans dangerous enough to conquer their world, yet gentle enough to comfort its orphans. Rikar chirped softly against Ellen's neck, and she whispered something the monitors didn't catch. But in that moment, across species, across evolution, across the vast darkness between stars, 2 frightened souls had found understanding, and the galaxy watched and wondered.